today we are going to do some pedalboard stuff. So one of the first things to note when using pedals is that you do need an extra guitar cable. And so this is your typical setup without pedals. You have one cable, you're going from your guitar into your amp. Now when you start incorporating pedals, you do need an extra guitar cable, and so one of them goes from your guitar into the pedal board, the other one goes from your pedal board into the amp. So the most important thing you will need: pedals, patch cables to connect the different pedals together, some sort of power source, pedal board, which is optional depending on your usage and needs. Alright, so talking about power source, you've got a couple options depending on how many pedals you're running. If you are just running one, all you really need is a singular power adapter. Now if you're running multiple, you have a couple options, and sort of the common ones is a daisy chain or a power supply. So daisy chains tend to be a lot cheaper, however they are a lot noisier because they're more prone to ground loops. So daisy chains have a singular power source and every single pedal sort of is routed from that one. With a power supply you have more individual currents and individual routes, and so there's less noise, but power supplies do tend to be a lot more expensive. So single pedal, all you really need is a singular power adapter. If you're running multiple, you do want to use a daisy chain or a power supply. So here's a single power adapter powering one single pedal. So the main things you're plugging in: your input from your guitar, your output going into your amp, and that power source, which you are using a single adapter for. For the daisy chain, you have a similar setup. There's just multiple plugs for the power sources to plug your multiple pedals. Now this is where guitar patch cables come into play. You do need a patch cable connecting each of your pedals in between so that that signal is not cut off. For multiple pedals, probably the most common power source used is the power supply, and so this is where multiple pedals are powered and they each have individual voltages running through them. Just as a side note for the power supplies, so there are a couple ways you can attach them to a pedal board. You can just stick it on top if there's space, or some people like to hide it underneath so that that power supply is not taking up space on the pedal board, which leaves more room for your actual pedals. As a general rule of thumb, the hooks or the hard scratchy side of the Velcro typically goes on the pedals, while the soft fuzzy side is on the pedal board. So in regards to pedal order, or sort of the order of your pedals within your chain, sequence does matter, and the main thing you do want to remember is that the pedals sort of affect each other. So let's say you put a delay as your first one. That delayed signal will be the signal that's going into your reverb, so on and so forth. So a lot of times you'll see people put the tuner as the first pedal, and that's because you want to tune the most pure signal coming from your guitar, right? So if you put distortion before your tuner, you would be trying to tune a distorted signal. So know that they do sort of build on each other, and sequence does sort of matter. I'm going to link a couple cool resources down below that kind of go more in depth with this pedal order, pedal chain kind of stuff. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to show you an example, which is the chain that I currently use. But know that this is just convention, and you should kind of experiment with it. So if you like something funky and it's not within this conventional method, you know, you do what you want to do. And that's how a lot of wacky sounds come about. When you are powering your pedals, one thing you do want to be careful with is your pedal's voltage and current. Usually a pedal will list its voltage. A lot of times it is 9 volts, but not in all cases. So you do want to make sure that it corresponds to your power source's voltage so that you don't blow up any of your pedals. The current tends to be a little harder to find, so the units for that would be milliamps. You'll see an M and a capital A. If the pedal does not list it, I would suggest Googling it and finding the official maker. They usually, in the manual or sort of in the specs area, they'll list the current draw. And now for the most important and exciting part, trying to cable everything together. So that involves putting guitar patch cables in between all of your pedals. Also involves plugging in your power supply to all of your pedals to make sure they are properly powered. Involves a lot of Tetris to make sure everything fits properly. So eventually you'll get something that looks semi-decent. A lot of times underneath the pedal board it gets pretty messy, so I like to use Velcro ties to just tie up any loose cables together so it's a little more easy to deal with. So that is it. I'm going to link some of the resources down below. Hopefully that was at least kind of helpful. See you later.